Hello everyone, I'm AK. This is my very first YouTube channel. So, if you like my contents, if you like whatever I present on my videos, then please hit the like button and also give a lot of support to my channel. My channel is going to be based on true horror stories, gun ghost stories, and various other creepy incidents or something which is beyond human logic, which are always happening worldwide. But our government is trying to hide them and trying to stop it to remain in the public domain. So, without wasting any time, let's begin. My very first story is going to be a true ghost story. Actually, the name of the story is actually a true ghost story written by Amy De Amico. I found her story from the reddit.com. Thanks a lot, Amy, for helping me out for my new video. So here the story begins. This is what Amy says. When my sister had her baby, she woke in the nights many times to nurse her second son until he could sleep through the night a few months later. He would fuss until he latched, soothed most of all when she held him in the rocking chair in a room downstairs near the warmth of their wood stove in their 18th century country house in Medina, New York, where they live. The mother bond in my sister was strong as basalt and as warm and sweet as a tapped and boiled maple sap that has just begun to cool for grading. About 2 months after he was born, she called and told me what happened over the course of a week in the house. Afterwards, although there was eerie moments, she never reported to me anything like it happening again. The baby had woken her as usual, crying in the loneliest part of the night, about 3 a.m., and she swaddled him and carried him to the rocking chair downstairs. She began to nurse and felt the change in his little postures. He relaxed and held to her. Her eyes closed for a moment, but her toe continued to nudge and the rocker as he settled against her. Then she felt that uncanny recognition when one knows one is being watched, and she opened her eyes, expecting to see her husband had also risen and come downstairs. Instead, an old woman wearing a long dress of washed out mustard colored muslin or maybe faded cotton, bending over her, eyes fixed on the baby. Her face was white and translucent as the mother's milk sun relied on. The rocker stilled as my sister stared at the apparition. The hairs on her own arms bristled and straight. Her heart is a hummingbird. Woman bent suddenly. Her thin hands reached for the baby. Her eyes were starving. My sister, even in her dread, had a bond with her son such that no creature on earth, dead or living, could hold him without her say. She twisted her waist and the baby away from the woman and said, "No, do not touch." The apparition rocked back a step on her heel. Her expression changed to a quiet countenance, and then she was gone. She was not there where she had just been. Fright is not the same as filled with dread. My sister realized with a crumpled gasp how afraid she was. She ran upstairs with the baby close and woke her husband. He reassured her that she hasn't fallen asleep and had an extraordinary vivid dream. She told me she was mollified by his reassurance, that it was the only rational thing that could be. The next day, though, she told a friend what happened. Her friend told her she had heard of an elderly woman who had died alone in the house when it was first been built. My sister was vigilant in the days that followed, especially at the night when she went to the rocker to nurse the baby. She didn't see the woman that night or the night after. However close she watched. Then one night, about 6 days more, the baby startled and cried in the night as he did, and she woke and picked him up and, switching on the light by the staircase, carried him into the hall and down the stairs. When she reached the foot of the stairs, the hairs of her arms and her neck suddenly, without any reason, stood on the end and she shivered. She looked to her right, quickly, where she had felt the gaze. She felt of someone staring again. Only the wall and the large framed mirror, with only her own reflection, and the baby's reflected back at her. There was no old woman standing beside her or creeping behind her. Deeply she breathed relief that they were alone, and that feeling of supernatural dread that had been only her imagination left her. She sat in the rock and nursed her tiny son until the mother and the babe were both quietly asleep in the chair. In the early dawn, she woke and stood to stretch and take the baby to his bassinet upstairs. She remembered her terror the night before and half smiled at herself, glancing to the mirror on the wall at the memory of the night before. The wall was empty save a coat of paint she and her husband had chosen and painted when they moved in. Now she felt angry. Her apparition, the ghost, a few nights before, had been a prowler, very much alive, and had come back a second time and taken the antique mirror. Early as it was, she woke her husband and told him the mirror was gone. He stared at her, utterly baffled. Honey, never owned a framed mirror, there or anywhere. As he said it, she knew at once that he spoke truly. Never in that home or any other had they purchased or possessed or been given a large framed antique mirror. Yet it had been there, sturdy and real, that night. The antique mirror was a second apparition. She had seen her own reflection and her baby's, not while reckoning, nearly asleep, but standing, wide awake, with the light on, holding her baby in her arms. So, this is the story sent by Amity Amico to me. That's all for today. Thank you. Goodbye. And stay tuned for the next story. And if you have liked the story, then please like, share, and subscribe my channel. Share it to your friends, to your family members, to everyone possible. Thank you so much. Goodbye.